Welcome from the Pharma TechOps 2017. I'm here with Eamon, the president of the Ireland affiliate of ISPE. Welcome to the conference. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Mona.
First of all, could you introduce yourself?
My name is Eamon. I'm currently president of the Irish affiliate of the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering. That's a society that represents both engineering and technical professionals in the pharmaceutical sector across the world. But we have a large affiliate in Ireland representing the large multinational pharmaceutical sector there. My own background is probably a bit boring in that I started in the industry in 1980. With Eli Lilly, and I'm still with Eli Lilly almost 40 years later. My current role is I'm responsible for European project planning as part of our corporate engineering group for large capital projects across Europe. And my past history has been in a series of roles at both our corporate headquarters and a large API site that Eli Lilly has in Ireland, focused on both small and now large molecules. And in my time there, I had a series of positions both in engineering, operations, IT, a range of areas prior to my current position.
What are the projects you are currently working on?
The specific details of the projects, unfortunately, are confidential because they're at an early planning stage. But they vary across between Europe and Asia, related to the evolution of our product pipeline. Eli Lilly has two divisions. It has a pharmaceutical division focused on human health pharmaceuticals, and there are projects underway there currently, primarily focused on some of our large molecule pipeline biologics that are coming through, many of whom are either approaching review by the regulatory agencies or are going through review. We also have a number of projects for our animal health division, and some of that activity also extends into Asia as well. So I have an activity that covers across both Asia and Europe.
When looking at pharmaceutical companies, would you argue that there should be a more intense cooperation between technical and operational departments?
I think the question you ask is a very good one, but it's almost a little bit of an old-fashioned question. That question is what would have been very appropriate maybe 10 or 15 years ago, where within a lot of companies you saw a view that had an operating team, primarily frontline operations staff, and you had a siloed technical team that used to drop in and drop out and be called when there was a problem and an emergency and that type of situation. Today, most sites, most companies have cross-functional teams where technical team members are integrated with the operations, and they're differentiable, so to speak. They are essentially the same team. Where I do see an opportunity, though, however, is often some of the other support teams out to supply chain representatives, or even people associated with, for example, the delivery of assets, which ultimately transfer to operations. So early facility delivery, they are not often well enough integrated, and as a consequence, they're not designing and thinking of facilities well enough from an operational perspective. And I think that's where the next opportunity lies. Some companies do it very well, where they engage their operations and frontline technical staff in delivery so that the assets that are delivered are appropriately set up for long-term manufacturing. But other companies still have a throw-over-the-wall mindset. We'll build it, then throw it over the wall and you operate it. And that doesn't always work.
And what do you think are the challenges of maintenance and plant availability?
I think those challenges come back ultimately to cost and reliability. Today, companies, the pharma sector is under significant cost pressure across the world as health services are focusing more on reducing costs. So as a result, companies have to look at being more lean. That means that they carry less inventories, so they need to make just in time for the market, which means their facilities have to be more and more reliable in terms of preparing for that. Equally well then, we need to anticipate that as we design our facilities for the future, and that needs to be integrated as well. I would say, if you go back 15, 20 years ago, the industry was in a comfortable position where it did not always have to focus on those issues. Today, efficiency, on-time delivery is all much more important to us, and as a consequence, it's absolutely integral to our business that we focus on those areas.
Tomorrow afternoon, you will moderate a World Cafe Roundtable on facility by design. What exactly will you discuss with your industry colleagues?
So one of the questions I'll be asking people at our roundtables is to get insights as to how different companies approach the challenge I mentioned earlier. How do you approach an upfront investment in a facility when inevitably the question is how little can I spend to build something versus what you need to invest in to have the facility run for 20 or 30, 40 years. Because the extra equipment you need to put in for that extra 30, 40 years may increase the first cost, but may mean the overall life cycle cost is reduced. And often it's very difficult to get that message across when you're going through an internal approval process, because people always focus on what am I going to spend now? They don't think of the long term. Getting some insights as to how different companies have approached that challenge, I think, will be helpful. And I hope to facilitate sharing that knowledge, and sharing those experiences across the attendees.
What would be your answer to that question?
If you were to look at, traditionally people use return on investment calculations where they look at the impact of the long-term use of facility in terms of their ultimate bottom line cost of producing a product. I often think, however, those return on investment calculations are very narrowly focused. They don't look at the benefits that, for example, this morning in one of our sessions, there was talk about having additional instrumentation installed on equipment to collect additional data. Well, that data will realise a learning curve of improvement on processes over the next 10, 20 years that is very rarely calculated into that return on investment. It's just put down as, it's an investment we need to make. And instead, there might be some allowance made for reduced maintenance, but the whole benefit in terms of higher efficiency, higher throughputs, which ultimately will mean that the investment is much more beneficial, is lost. Changing that paradigm where we assess investments differently and look at life cycle costs better, I think is something that could be improved upon. And I think it's an area like the ISPE, for example, to come forward with proposals for how do we metricate that? How do we put numbers on that so that business cases can better reflect that benefit?
What's your impression of the conference so far?
It's excellent. At this stage, we're only halfway through the first day, so it's early days yet. For two purposes, I found it very beneficial. First of all, the number of colleagues and new people I've met from across the industry, both within Europe and across the world who are here, is very impressive. And a lot of us are seeing the same challenges. Many of them actually are ISPE members in other affiliates in the world, so that's actually interesting as well. I think the other benefit is the presentations themselves are very aligned with the topic for the day. The looking at new ways of approaching maintenance and engineering and integrating it into operations is one of the key themes of the conference. And this morning, certainly some of the presentations were very interesting. And on a personal level, as I said, I work for Eli Lilly. I saw nuggets of information that I'd like to bring back and hopefully pass on to my colleagues, because I think they'll benefit from it. I also saw ideas there today that I think the ISPE could help promulgate in some of its forums as well.
Thank you very much for your insights and have a great conference.
Mona, thank you very much, and the same to you.